Hi, Engineer Joe here. Just wanted to let you guys know for this particular episode, Jason was calling from a car with a hands-free Bluetooth, and unfortunately, that Bluetooth microphone clips a lot during this episode. I cleaned it up as much as I could, but there's really not too much I could do, so our apologies, and enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to Painted Bright Quarterly Slush Pile. We thank you for joining us, and we tell you that we take more time than other editorial boards. It'll be a while once you submit, but the gratitude you'll feel after you hear this and understand how much time we take in conversation about your work, that I hope you'll still feel honored and respected as we do for receiving your work. So welcome to our editorial table. Our sound studio is still under construction. I don't know how many times I'll have to say those words to you, but here we are, huddled around the black ravioli in my office, my windowless office. And the me and the I that keep speaking here is Kathleen Volkmiller, and I am director of the graduate program in publishing here at Drexel, and a memoir writer and editor with Marion and Jason for 20-some years. So hi, and thanks for listening. And on the couch today is Tim Fitz.
Hi, I'm Tim Fitz. I'm the author of The Soju Club and Hypothermia, and I've been reading for the Painted Bride Quarterly for about 4 years. I teach freshman writing here at Drexel and creative writing at Curtis Institute of Music. And sitting next to me is Cherie.
Yeah, let me just say, Cherie DeVos is going to be our next editorial assistant. So you're going to be hearing her voice on several upcoming episodes. And this is a transition episode for us because we're saying goodbye to Sarah Eichert, at least for a little while. She's leaving her co-op position and Cherie is taking over. So Cherie, can you tell us anything at all about yourself from the couch?
My name is Shayla Lawson, and I am a pre-junior in International Area Studies, and I have a concentration in Literature, Culture, and the Arts, and minor in Spanish. And I'm working on my second co-op now, about to, and I don't know what else you might want me to say.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's good enough. You'll be able to say other things as we go along. Sarah.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
My name is Sarah Eichert, and I am a third-year English major at Drexel University. I'm the current editorial assistant, and Cherie can pry my title from my cold, dead hands. I've been reading for PBQ for about a year now, almost, and it's been a great time. So I hope to be on more podcasts, despite no longer working full-time for PBQ.
Yeah, and we hope to have you. Loyal listeners, you'll know that I love when we're doing something new, and we're doing something really new right now because, Jason, where are you and what are you doing?
I am currently on the 278. I'm about to cross over from Staten Island into New Jersey because I'm on my way to read at the Virginia Festival of the Book. So I am coming to you while driving.
That is so exciting to me somehow.
And safe.
And safe.
Insane. And not dangerous because it is hands-free, and I will prioritize driving and safety. But no, this is actually working out very well. I had intended to be further along in the trip, and I thought I could pull over and just stop on I-95, but because of traffic and because of when I started, the only option was to come to you directly from the road. And I am associate editor at Painted Bride Quarterly, and I am an associate professor at the Borough of Manhattan Community College, and I've been with PBQ a long time.
Right. We'll just leave it there.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your loyalty and for calling in and joining us. So with no further ado, we have one poem by one poet and then two poems by another. And I think Tim Fitz has graciously volunteered to read the first one.
Okay, the author's name is The poet's name is Faisal Mohyuddin, and the title of the poem is The Riddle of Longing. When to be an immigrant's son is to be a speaker of several broken tongues, each day leaves you homesick for a place you've never touched nor forgotten, and feel the ache to know. When there's no one left, you ask the wind for directions. Your own voice returns your wish with a map of your mother's palm spoken into threads of blue light. Take the long way home through the cemetery. There, kiss your father's name, bring back an echo of pain and a phlox. When years later your son finds it crushed within a book, he will feel against his face a warm puff of breath, yours, then a wink of green wings behind his eyes. Strange that I am holding two large rocks, looking for something else sacred to smash open.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that eloquent reading. This is in 2-line stanzas. It's a long, skinny poem. It's what I call a scratch and sniff poem because it looks just like a poem, right? Boy, it sounded like one too. Thank you. So, I like that title, The Riddle of Longing.
The image of the stones at the end is really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that image, and particularly the kind of the suspension that it waits.
Yeah.
This poem also just does a fantastic job of pulling you in right away. Like after the third stanza, I was immediately like, yes, I'm here for this.
Mm-hmm.
So excellent.
Can you read those opening lines just one more time? I just want to hear those opening lines one more time.
Sure.
When to be an immigrant's son is to be a speaker of several broken tongues, each day leaves you homesick for a place you've never touched nor forgotten, and feel the ache to know.
It's so direct. It's really great.
What's that?
It's so direct. I mean, it's just very. I mean, I feel like a lot of times, we get hung up on kind of flowery language or embroidery, or and I feel like a lot of times the most accomplished poems are the ones that just feel spoken. But someone had to tell you something and they did, and in those lines, it can really happen.
And I think it's really difficult to write about anything like this. We're talking about death, loss, longing, not knowing your place, right? All of these things. To walk the line between, great articulation and sentimentality, and not lean too deep into sentimentality. I think that is she on that balance? Is he on that balance beam? My goodness. I'm really impressed by that part of it.
I also feel like having traveled to a number of countries and lived abroad and having known people from different cultures who are in this situation, my mind immediately goes to identify those people. And they're all different ethnicities. They're people who have been brought up in Korea. I know a lot of people in Korean families who are raised by immigrant parents who aren't wonderful speakers of English as far as linguistically, nor Korean, because the Korean wasn't spoken at home. And a lot of times they end up in my ESL classes at Temple. And usually they're great writers and they have interesting things to say, but they've been stuck in these classes because of this issue here. And there's always kind of a lost feeling that they talk about. It smells a lot like this, seems a lot like this.
I agree with you, Tim. I think one of the reasons the first few lines spoke out to me is because I'm also the child of an immigrant. My father came to this country when he was about 25 years old. And his English is very broken. He can't really write well in his first language either because it was just a spoken language. He didn't really go to school. So, and I think that's what this poem does so effectively is that it tells the story of so many people in a way that's gentle, but also telling. correct. So
Yeah, and you just made me realize we don't know the nationality,
Yeah,
right? And it
yeah.
doesn't really matter.
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Because the feeling's the same.
But it doesn't surprise me that the writer has something interesting to say, because those students always have something interesting to say. They
Right.
observe the world totally different than
Yes.
the people around them.
Yeah. Yeah. But you guys, those lines bring back an echo of pain and a phlox.
Mhm.
When years later your son finds it crushed within a book, he will feel against his face a warm puff of breath. Yours. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is gorgeous. And that can be anyone, anybody, right? The universality and the specificity of that is just so beautiful, so wonderfully braided.
What do you make of the ending with the two large rocks looking for something else sacred to smash?
What do you?
I mean, I think that,
Well, I see
So
that
I-
kind of. What's that? What's that, Jason?
oh no, I was going to say that I think that so much of the work of the poem is a kind of suspension, right? That like these stories often seem less important, but they're in suspension. They will return. When you open the book, it's there, but then the final image emphasizes the brokenness, that something is being destroyed, right? And even in kind of playing with the shard, or in kind of keeping that idea that everything persists. It persists in broken state.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys see, listeners, remember as well that, of course, you can look at these poems on our podcast pages on our site so that you can read along. But that strange that I am holding two large rocks, that's the first time we've got the eye. And what an image to finally see the speaker.
And I think I like the way the eyes at the end, because one of the risks of first person, I think, is this: if it was too early, it would be about the eyes experience instead of the universal experience of the poem. And then I don't care as much. I don't see all the people that I know who are in this situation.
Right.
Here, the poet gets away with both by saving it.
Yeah.
It's a nice move.
All right, gang. I think we might be ready to vote, and we do have two longer to look at. So let's do it to it. You ready? We're going to, in the studio, 1, 2, 3, vote. Ladies and gentlemen, no surprise that is a unanimous yes. Woo! Champagne cork sound effect. So exciting. Thank you so much, Faisal.
Well done, team.
What, darling?
I said well done, team.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Okay, so our next poem, our next poet is Shayla Lawson, and I do feel compelled to describe this poem because the title is Pyramids, and every stanza kind of looks like half a pyramid, does it not? They're little what am I saying? Isosceles triangles, right?
So that's
Yeah.
not an
It's not an isosceles. Well, I don't teach freaking geometry. I should never went there. Algebra. Which
They're
place do we learn about the shapes? I don't know. What is this called?
They're right.
They're just right triangles, and I was trying to be
That was
fancy.
geometry. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what she did, you see, is she stacked up the
There are a lot
words.
of triangles in trigonometry.
Trigonometry.
I just math showing off now.
She is right. Math.
Trigonometry, you're always making triangles to measure the heights of trees.
I don't know this stuff, and I don't rightly care. So I'm just telling you that these are half triangles, half pyramids. and there's many of them. So yeah, it's a 2.5 page poem, all written in these tight little groupings of 5 lines.
Can I ask a question about the poem before we read it?
Of course.
About this issue of right triangles?
Yeah.
Idling the pyramid?
Yeah.
If I'm reading this for the first time over the submittable page,
Yeah.
to me, I would find myself like one strike against it, just visually, because it bothers me a little bit that, I mean, of course, if they're arranged in a pyramid form, that would bother me more.
Well,
it does. It does. I mean, I'm open to it still before I read it. My mind's always ready to be changed.
Right.
Is it like a trying too hard kind of thing, kind of feeling?
This is what I have to say, and this is what I tell my students too. If you're going to be tricky and divicey, please don't let that be the only thing you've got going on.
Definitely is.
Right?
Yeah.
If all I get is the device, haha, you made triangles, then it isn't valuable.
Right.
You know, I think that I understand that you come in with a POV going, oh yikes, what is this going to be about? But I would still give it a second and see if it if
It might have to be
more.
in service to emotion.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Does the form fit the content? So
If there were pyramids, though, I'd probably drop the hammer.
But
But yeah,
all
I hear
right.
you.
Well, that's another reason why PBQ has a democratic editorial
This is
policy, and Tim Fitz is not the only person with a vote.
That's true. Yeah.
As is Kathleen Bookmiller isn't either, and I'm really grateful for that, even though I get outvoted from time to time. So certainly I do. But let's get in it. All right. This is Shayla Lawson, Pyramids. Pyramids. The Jesus I know died on a pole. He was not a god. He did not want to be. He told the thief hanging beside him, "Welcome to paradise," that all the man could see were pyramids, cheetahs, thrashing their wild tails like an angry mob. I mean, what's the difference between the King of all kings and the Lord of man and the God of your last will and testament? In my favorite stripper fantasy, Cleopatra wears spots and scaffolds around you like a vortex. I lick her cheetah paws and lap dance into your arms like the baddest deity of your dreams. You enter me first with a tail I have grown, and I am as much an animal as a diamond. Solid, hard, and pure. The way you say my name in bed, you curse every god you've ever met. What's the difference between a woman set loose and a loose woman, and a woman who crowns herself pharaoh of a country that is not hers? The Jesus I know is not the kind of insurgent Jerusalem expects after all that time building the pyramids. You are Samson when I pull your hair. I blind your eyes, and the pillars of your strength all crumble like a temple. In this way, I am the God you hail from champagne flutes to bathtub baptism. I wonder why, if we are gods ourselves, we revival, shout the names of men we worship only of necessity. I am only a woman when I complete you. I disrobe of all my God-given parts. I wake up folded in the shape of breasts and young men's jewelry. I know why I love only you and me, and working out the pyramid scheme of my gold tone profanity. Whew, I need a cigarette.
Ambition of that. Like, let's just take a moment and just admire the ambition of that poem.
Yeah. Well, I haven't smoked in years, so I'm not really going to start again now, but...
That is a fearless poet. That is a fearless poet taking on so much. And, like, really high risk, right? Like, I mean, the risk of offense, the risk of being, told that that's something you can't talk about, the risk of, there's so much risk in that poem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a great way to start the conversation, Jason. Thank you so much for that. The fearlessness is what makes me get the arm hairs up,
Yeah.
Gosh. So Jesus and pharaohs and women's sexuality and women's sexual power over men and where do we begin? How do we start to?
Sherry, what did you think?
As you guys have already said, it's a really like a fearless poem. And what had struck me from the beginning was that this has to be a writer who knows the Bible clearly, because of all these examples and all of these, I guess the
references.
Some people would call it blasphemy, and I think more of it's like it's mostly a challenge, the way that I see it. And this is similar to a lot of what I think we're finding nowadays with people who feel that they've been, I guess, indoctrinized. And they think, they believe that when they come into better knowledge, aside from what their parents taught them and their grandparents and their aunts and uncles, and start to think for themselves, a lot of them, I think, adopt some of these same thoughts. But the difference between those people and this poet is the fearlessness because of the language that's used here. And another thing that is in one of the stanzas where it says, the difference between a woman set loose and a loose woman and a woman who crowns herself pharaoh of a country that is not hers. That's not the complete statement, but that term, a loose woman or a woman set loose, not only comes to me through like a sexual perspective, but also in the way that this poem is written, because it's not being held by, I guess, those religious standards, and it's actually it's taking that fearlessness and writing all of these things down. So it's kind of like a person freeing herself from all of the things that she was taught and socialized to believe. That's what I'm getting from this writing.
Yeah. You just made me want to mention listeners again. I so strongly suggest you go look at this. Several words were in italics. Several words have forward slashes between them. And I think that she's done really well with that, not abusing that, not overusing it. The craft of when she uses it is kind of brilliant. To continue on from where Cherie left off after the lines, and a woman who crowns herself pharaoh of a country that is not / her. Yeah, I just think the use of that / is perfect there. So that's another, do we call that a risk too, that she built this in triangles and risks, editors like Tim Fitz reacting to that, and then the cleverness. Oh, I'm so clever with my itals and my and my forward slashes. Aside from the content, do we consider those devices risky too?
I think they are risky, but I think that this poet knows what she's about, and so I don't even think when she's doing this, I don't even know if she's thinking to herself, "Oh, I'm so clever." I think that she knew that this is the way that she needed to tell this story, that this is the way she needed to tell this.
Part of the element of riskiness is that sometimes you pull it off and sometimes things are annoying.
Right. Sure.
I find that's part of the poem annoying. The visual element gets on my nerves. But I like a lot of the things that are happening in the poem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at the end, I'm not really concerned too much with the visual part of it.
Yeah.
You know, there are parts of the poem that I like better than others. In some ways, I almost think I like this poem better if it was like cut up into 3 different poems.
It is
No.
not.
No, I'm not pushing to that. I'm not going there. Right now. But in my mind, I'm looking at it that way, and I'm not concerned with the shape of the stanzas.
Listen, here's something that's interesting that's happening. For the first time ever, Jason, who is driving, is not looking at the poem. So,
Yeah.
Jason, darling, you're hearing about this. You heard me read the poem, in a pure way, let's say, without those visuals. What do you have anything to say on that part of this?
I do. And I think that the poem is uneven. I think that it strikes wild. And I think that the experimentation, at times, you can feel, like Tim was saying, it's incredibly successful. Like, it's really powerful. And it even makes you a little uncomfortable in places, which I think it intends to do. And then in other places, like, it feels like, like, we're just sort of, trying something out here without quite achieving the same desired effect. So I can't really comment on, like, slashes and italics and, the shape. The shape doesn't feel necessary to me. I mean, the idea of it sort of being in triangles doesn't feel important.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I'm not looking at unlike our listeners, I don't have the ability to just check it on the web because I would crash.
Right. And I feel like I guess I'm just
I'm not willing to take the risk.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm projecting myself. I listen to podcasts in many contexts, but they're always while I'm doing something else, while I'm driving, while I'm commuting, while I'm washing dishes, right? So I would also not be looking. And that's why I thought your response would be interesting.
I'm fairly conservative when it comes to things like punctuation and capitalization and line breaks. I mean, I think like Kevin Young, his work, he never capitalizes like gorgeous, totally works. I think, I think it's Alice Notley with the slashes, totally work. But by and large, I think that, lines are great. Just like kind of go with what you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I do like about the riskiness of the poem is that it does require some riskiness of the reader as well. I mean, in order to come to this poem objectively, yes, it is either blasphemous or borderlines blasphemous. And a nice chunk of the readership will look at this and say, I'm not even going to go there. Mm-hmm. So it does take, so when I was reading the poem this morning, I was thinking parts of it I didn't like, and then I had to examine, is that me not liking it because of what I'm bringing to the poem, or is this objectively something that I don't like? And so I don't want to, there's certain parts of myself that I want to bring to a poem because it's going to be, is or is not going to be published in the magazine. But certain parts I did have to leave out.
There's no question that it's blasphemous. It denies the divinity of Jesus Christ. And in Christian context, that is blasphemy. I love poems that are blasphemous, and I love poems that are about faith because they bring the same energy. Blasphemy and faith require the same emotional investment in the question of your place in the universe.
That's beautiful.
It requires the reader to come to their own terms on the subject. You can't just walk through life liking everything.
Right.
Or disliking everything.
Yeah.
Right. Or immediately judging and rejecting everything either.
Tim Fitz.
Yeah.
I think there is a reverence too, though, which is interesting. I think that, like, despite it being blasphemous through a Christian or Catholic lens, like, definitely if I had my Roman Catholic grandparents read this, they would have a stroke. But there is a way in which she gives reverence to God, I think, and also reverence to the human body and reverence to herself, which because I'm bringing my Roman Catholic upbringing to the table for this poem, that is something that doesn't happen within a lot of circles of faith, like a reverence for the female body. It's just like a beautiful tension and balance between that blasphemy and reverence that I think she captures very well.
Yeah. I was raised Catholic as well, and I'm with Sarah. I see as much reverence as blasphemy. It doesn't, I think the female is celebrated and that there's no problem with that. Like, I don't know that goes against God or Jesus or, I don't know.
The part that bothers me about that is the stripper fantasy. Why can't it just be a woman instead of a stripper?
Why can't it be a stripper?
Why can't it be a stripper? A stripper is a specific thing. Yeah.
I think that's again reverence too. That line.
Absolutely.
The use of stripper.
I don't know.
And where it comes in the poem
is getting a little tired.
Say that again.
I'm just getting bored with the empowered stripper image.
But it's in my favorite stripper fantasy. That's what I like about it.
Stripper fantasy.
Repeat that.
I think it's a disempowering stripper fantasy.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is an empowered stripper. I think that this is a bad fantasy. This is a fantasy about power exchange and control and someone performing for you because you're paying them. I think that.
Yeah.
Kathy was calling it out as kind of female power over men, the power of female sexuality over heterosexual men. Which I think is definitely there, but I think this is sort of a self-consciously bad fantasy in which there is exploitation and there is monetary exchange and there is this buying and selling of your desire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why pretend those things don't exist? I guess that's what I'm saying. We're talking about the fearlessness. I guess we haven't used the word honesty. It's just kind of brutally honest in a way that I appreciate. So, gang, we've got one more by the same poet. So I think we should vote. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, vote. Oh, it's in. I was holding my breath. Listeners, I was holding my breath. I was so scared. I was going to write a note to the people in the room and say, MFers, you better vote yes. So, thank God I didn't have to resort to violence. So, all right, that I'm exhausted. Somebody else is going to have to read the next one. We've got another one by the same poet, and there's no funky construction, nor are there funky fonts.
There's funky fonts in there.
There's some funky fonts. Oh, yeah, yes, that's right. She likes italics, I guess. Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. Oops, I take it back. Sorry. Stand corrected. It just looked so traditional. I forgot that she did, in fact, add some forward slashes and italics to this one as well. But it's much more traditional in its format. So this is 5-line stanzas of consistent length of line. And Sarah, would you read it for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Shayla Lawson, American Wedding. I check out my reflection laced in bubble foam on the passenger side window of a faded Mustang. I hand rinse beside the third bungalow I'll occupy as a new bride. The automobile never gets clean, and I still wear the veil. A tiny diamond toils around my ring finger, catches sludge from the bucket as it wipes in water. I get very good at being arranged. I learn more and more about what you make when you need to gain less and less. Like television in America, I am wonderful with beginnings. In the faint melody before the rewound cassette, I hear the threefold harmony that floated me down the aisle. I carry a Bible and a girl who imagines a marriage like Christ gave the bride class. I don't understand when I am given away. I ask the first boy who ever wanted my hand about our generation so littered in tattoo. He tells me people are tired of trying to find ways to keep magic inside them. But I have no use for supernatural forces. I question the detail in every ritual. I am terrified of what might possess me. A month into my very own divorce, I have daydreams of a needle flood with ink. The permanence. Imagine my nostalgia. I crush a fountain pen. Watch my soul disperse into a deep blue ocean.
Alrighty. So I like that ending as well. Thank you for that reading.
This one is not as clear cut.
No. And
it picks up for me around the divorce.
it does what around the divorce?
It picks up for me around the divorce. Like a lot of the other images, like sort of didn't work for me as well. Like sort of the questioning of the ring, and kind of feeling like the way in which marriage is kind of invested in all these like weird patriarchal norms. The woman is given away. It's technically, I believe legally that's the origin of social death. That a married woman is technically socially dead because she takes on her husband's identity. But then it kind of picks up for me around the divorce, that I kind of got engaged again. I'm not sure I love the tattoo part. Some of it felt like a little too explanatory for me, like keeping magic inside. I don't know. That didn't feel quite right to me.
Yeah. What was the first thing you said, Sarah? It was less focused?
Clear cut.
Yeah, clear cut. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll use the word focused. It's less focused than the other one, even though the other one.
Focused.
This is more focused?
It's all about marriage. Everything is about marriage. And,
I don't know.
And,
I mean, the theme is obvious. It's about marriage and divorce, but I think her thoughts on that theme are that's what's not clear cut to me. Like, I'm not exactly sure how she feels. Whereas in the first poem, I was with her the whole time. I knew exactly what she was trying to tell us. This one, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, which is funny. I mean, I think I'm with Sarah. Subject matter sure, it's on one thing, but I don't know what my message is. And maybe there are just so many images, the Mustang and the bungalow and the diamond, and I still wear a veil. And I don't, boy, do I see a lot of possibility in this poem.
I have a real hard time caring about other people's marriages. I mean, I don't really care how you do it. I don't care who marries who. It just doesn't. I guess.
So when Brangelina broke up, you felt nothing.
Right.
Did you feel something?
But
you felt nothing when Brangelina broke up.
I felt nothing. I'm with Tim on that.
But the thing is,
oh my God! All right.
So in other words, I don't care about most of this poem. However, there are two places that I was sort of shocked at how much I cared, and that was that, like television in America, I'm wonderful with beginnings. There are 100,000 times I've thought, I can't believe how bad this show sucks. The last 15 minutes, because the first 15 minutes were awesome.
Yeah.
I've thought that all. I think
that line made me laugh aloud. That is a great idea.
Yeah.
And like television in America, I am wonderful with beginnings.
And then saying asked about when our generation became so littered in tattoo, because tattoos used to separate different types of people, and it wasn't necessarily good or bad, but there were certain things about them that you knew.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I was working at this cafe a couple months ago. There's a skinny little white kid, and he was bragging about how awesome it was going to be when he got a full back tattoo. Yeah. And everyone's looking at him like, you're a geek now, you will die a geek. You can get as many tattoos as you want. You're just a kind of gimpy loser. And he was telling everybody in the store about his back tattoo. And I thought, this tattoos mean nothing now. When you get a tattoo, you have killed tattoo culture. anyway, so I love that it's just a poem that does
They're so prolific. That's the situation. They
Right.
used to have more meaning
Yes.
when there were less of them.
And
I do agree.
but like a poem
Wait,
that I
what was the
don't
back
really
tattoo
care
going
about.
to be of?
What's that?
What was the back tattoo going to be of?
At that point, some neurons fried in my head, and I just couldn't focus anymore.
This is the most important detail of the story for me. What was the back tattoo going to be?
But hold on, Jason. My point for this is, I want to lock this down, is that there's a poem that I don't care about, but I know people do care about, and it has two moments that I don't really care what these two moments I like so much that I feel like if for me personally, to get to those points is worth reading it. And I would remember that. I'll remember these. I would remember these a year from now.
Really?
Bring this up.
What's the other moment? The television moment and what other one?
Television moment and Generation Littered with Tattoo.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm not anti people having tattoos. It's just.
You sounded like it a second ago,
noise.
darling.
It's noise.
I think the coffee shop dude's tattoos were going to be angel wings.
Yeah,
Okay, that guy was
Just
me.
throwing that out
or
there.
a tiger.
Yeah.
Okay, sidebar. Should I get angel wing tattoos? Pick that up later. What I was going to say is about the poems, coming back, is that I think that both of the poems are about ambiguity and ambivalence. And in the first poem, it was a really energetic. It was like a really powerful, like kick you in the face ambivalence. And then this one is so much quieter. It's a little bit harder to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, now I really don't want to sound like Tim Fitz in any way. But this time, the I tells, the choices of what to I tell is real hard for me. I don't know why she's I telling what she's I telling. And in the last one, the craft was huge. It seemed like there was great thought. And this one seems, I can't follow the decisions with the forward slashes and the I tells,
And also,
as well as I did in the other poem.
on that moment too, or on that note too, like even in the last stanza when she uses the double colon, even that, it's like I'm not. Yes, I agree with you that I'm not quite sure what she wants me to focus on with that.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
They're distracting to me this time, Tim.
So that poem had forward slashes. This one's got two.
Yeah.
Isn't that the time? I mean, like with fiction writers, if you're going to use an exclamation point, it's like once every 50 pages or something, or maybe, you got to use them every once in a while.
Right.
I mean, sometimes maybe just one a book. I mean,
That's different, though. I don't know if you can compare those two things.
I don't know why these are here.
I don't know why
That's
these are here.
the thing.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I did feel them in the first poem. And this one, they seem a little more random, or at least I'm not following the logic of choice.
Let me call it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's random, but I do think that I'm just.
I don't think she meant them to be
Yes,
random.
yes.
I'm saying I don't see the intent.
Yes.
And so therefore they jump out at me in a negative way. Whereas in the last one, they seemed more organic to the poem.
In passenger side and hand rents, do they need to have dashes there?
Hindrance might.
Hand rents, my
rents,
passenger
yeah.
side is. There's just a lot of those little
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, little choices.
I would
Passenger side is one word.
I would describe this poem in the words of like my generation as doing the most. It's doing a lot, and it's not doing everything for me in the good way. I mean, for all the reasons you guys have already pointed out, we have the slashes and the italics and all of the everything. But for some, I mean, this like television in America, I'm sorry, but that bothers me. It's like it was, the poem was like trying really hard to be, we had all the imagery, as we were saying, we had the imagery happening here. And then we had like television in America, and I felt like I was reading what was more like a paper or a journalism piece with that statement. It just it felt like it didn't fit to me.
Yeah.
So when it came, it just kind of threw me. And that might be minor, but that just really threw me off all the way. And I think also,
Actually, can I?
go ahead.
That thing, I think in America, you probably still don't like it, because
Like if it were American television.
but like television, because television generally ends bad because you get hooked and then you don't need to finish it.
Right.
There's no need to finish it.
Right.
So, but
Predictable.
I get it.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way it sounds.
I understand what you're saying. Even though it made me laugh aloud, it did seem incongruous with the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I understand what she's saying. In the beginning of the marriage was better. And when you have all that hope and possibility and potentiality, you never expect
It was like
the petered out ending, right?
that she really wanted in there. Like she really wanted that point in there.
Yeah,
So she just included it, but like it just didn't fit.
I get it. And I get it's an analogy to marriage, but I also get what you're saying about it seeming, again, like there's a sort of lack of organic flow to this.
Was there a more was there a subtler way that she could have included that,
Yeah.
to make it just as
The concept, yeah.
it just feels a little like thrown together.
I feel like, and obviously this is extrapolation, I feel like this poet wanted to write a poem about her marriage and divorce, but she wasn't even quite sure of what she wanted to write about, and therefore it was very hard. I feel like this poem was very hard for the poet to write, and so because of that, it's very hard for us to read it, if that makes sense.
I think if there's anything that bores me more than other people's marriages, it's their divorce. Because divorce is really, and no judgment on this really, but I mean, it's a cliche that every marriage takes work, and it's always interesting to find out how people do make things work. And I find when I talk about people's divorce, okay, yeah, I get it, you couldn't get along, and I'm not personally, that's another personal how I come to the poem. I wouldn't vote yes or no based on this issue, but to me, it's not a very fascinating subject.
Okay. I think that unlike tattoos, marriages are like snowflakes. Each one is individual, as are their divorces. So people don't just divorce because they can't get along. Although many, many people have tattoos of angel wings on their back. Right? So
This is the best tattoo ever.
right. There's a uniqueness to each marriage that I'm not in Tim's camp with that. But does that make me about this wedding?
I think
I think topically, like marriage and divorce is fine to write a poem on. I just don't think that. I think that this poem is, like Cherie said, doing the most or trying too hard. I just think and that's why it doesn't feel organic.
Right.
Because the poet is struggling.
Yeah, I guess I'm more interested in how it falls apart, and I don't see that here.
No, we don't have a how.
Interesting.
Yeah, just that it did.
But
How
that
or
it did
why,
was
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's very, in some ways, vague. Yeah.
I don't think it was I don't think that was supposed to be a major part of it though.
No. I don't
Yeah,
think so.
me either. I think the whole thing is just about the wedding, like
And-
what
and,
the
like,
expectations and
Her role.
Expectations.
in the marriage.
Exactly.
yeah. I think there's a lot of potential in this poem. I would love Shayla Lawson to take another crack or two, or maybe this is the one that belongs.
Clearly-
It's 3 poems. I don't know.
That when you read her poems, clearly she's doing a lot with language, and she has a good idea what she wants to do with language.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those poems you look at and you think, oh, this is lazy writing. It's
Not
that
at
way.
all.
Yeah.
No, it's very strong.
Right, yeah.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Listen to the podcast.
All right, team. Yeah, we'll tell her to. I'm sure she'll listen. Are we ready to vote, team? Okay.
We are.
All right. 1, 2, 3, vote. All right. This one did not make it. So Shayla's 1 and 2. Is that what you're going to say? 1 and 2. But the podcast
1 and
is
1.
1 and 1.
Math.
2 and 3.
Math is killing
Oh,
us
I
this
should not even
podcast.
try to go to sports, not try to go to math.
Or one.
Well, and football, which is the only sport I give a shit about. I don't know. All right. So what a great podcast this was. I'm going to be really selfish. I just need to talk for a minute. So NPR is doing a podcast campaign in the month of March. We never know when we're going to release these. So this may not even be released during the month of March, but I'm just going to try already to say that I would like everybody to continue to use the hashtag tripod, TRY pod, and share with others the podcast that you're enjoying. Loyal listeners will know that I listen to a lot, and I love them very much. And I would love all of our listeners to hashtag tripod this one. But I want to keep talking for a minute here because I'm in love with the voice of the man that puts me to sleep on a podcast called Sleep With Me.
That's not weird.
Oh my goodness. This is what I have to say. Any man that can put me to sleep with a smile on my face, right? I'm gonna love. So the thing that I think is so funny is I won't look him up. I have been every day, I think, today I'm going to Google this man and see what voice this is, right?
You don't want to know.
Who belongs to this voice? But I will not. I will just tell all of you, tune in to Sleep With Me podcast. You will not regret it. You will giggle as you drift off. And what, darling?
It's a sleeping podcast. It's a
podcast that is intended to help you go to sleep. And he's just so lovely and open-hearted. And it really, the beginning of every show, he talks to you about the fact that he has struggled with insomnia, and that's why he does this. And then he just freaking meanders along. And there's something about his voice. It's just. And every night I think I'm not going to fall asleep because I'm enjoying this too much. And then the next thing I know, I'm done. So I love him very much. And he's now joined a podcast. Oh crap. What is this called? A network called Farrell. And so he now has to introduce another podcast. And I thought of Tim because what he talked about last night was a new one called Dumb People Town.
It's with the Scarborough Brothers.
Oh, all right. So Joe, our sound engineer, knows of this one.
I listened to it on the way in.
Oh, really? And I have not even listened to it yet. But what made me think of Tim is that when my boyfriend discussed it, he said, Dumb People Town. Often the people live in Florida. So, I thought that was great. So I'm going to hashtag tripod both of those, even though they are not on NPR. And I have not listened to Dumb People Town. And I'm going to ask, although Joe has given us a huge thumbs up on that one, as well as the Sleep With Me guy. And so listen up to your podcasts. It's really the greatest thing while you're cleaning or folding laundry or driving or walking. And I know that takes up our headspace, but there's something about having these podcasts that I'm really digging.
Speaking of Dumb People Town,
yeah,
there's a troubling thing that's been happening in my life in the past week where every day for the past week, I've heard references either from friends or in popular culture to people who believe the earth is flat.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's a wave that's happening. And so listeners, you'll notice it too now that I said this. Anytime you hear of something, you start happening. I think this is not a good development for the human race.
Very sad.
Don't we have pictures from space? Yeah. That show us the Earth is round?
Yeah, you can't even go down that. Once you start saying that, then
there are dumb people in this world.
Wow.
It's painful to listen to. Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal this weekend said that he doesn't believe that the Earth is round because there's another basketball player who said that, and Shaquille O'Neal is like, Shaquille O'Neal was like, yeah, he's right. And also the rapper B.O.B. A few months ago got into a Twitter beef with Neil deGrasse Tyson over whether or not the world was flat. It got so bad that Neil went on, I want to say Jimmy Fallon, and he rapped about how the world is actually round. So yeah, there are.
Do any of these people live in Florida? They're
would not
scattered
be
about. They're
surprised.
scattered among
But-
us.
I'm not sure.
It's nice to know that I haven't heard that from people in
Yes.
Florida. It's nice that the heat is taken off us for a little while.
Well, listen, I would like all of our listeners, especially our Florida ones, to chime in on what you think of podcasts, PBQ, the poems we read today, our podcast in particular. So follow us on social media, share this show and others. And Jason, be so careful out there as you're driving. At least you're only going to Virginia.
Can you give us a honk?
And I will take the brave position that the world is in fact round.
Yeah. Well,
I will commit to that right now.
yeah, I think I vote yes on that one too. Thumbs up. The world's round. Okay, listeners, keep reading and listening. Thanks.
Well done.